I want you to think what comes to mind when I say advocating for your promotion. What is the first thing that you think of, right? Typically, it could be asking, right? Asking quite literally for a promotion. Or let's say you hear me suggest to have ally meetings with other leaders across the organization. And then you go into those meetings and you ask to work on their team, or you ask for a job, or you ask for advice on how to get a promotion, right? And none of those things are actually the process that I teach. Now, I will say there is a time and a place where it can be quite simple. You just say, "Hey, I would like a promotion." And guess what? You might actually get it. But it's not typically part of your daily conversation. And I'll tell you when you can actually appropriately say, "Hey, I want a promotion." But that's like, 1% of the time that you're having a conversation with your boss. So, what are you doing for the other 99% of the time? The I'm going to tell you, but before I do that, I want you to also understand that advocating for a promotion and, really taking ownership of your career, for a lot of women, it has and carries the same principles of sales, right? And when we think about being a salesperson, right, we think, oh, we're asking for the sale. We're asking somebody to buy from us. We're asking for a client to come into our company. But I have a lot of women in my programs who work in sales, and they do not view sales that way. They view sales as a back and forth conversation, as a mutually beneficial agreement, as we have something that is of value to you, and you are going to spend the money for that value, right? And when you think of sales this way, you start to kind of get over this idea that sales is like ego driven. Like every sale that I make puts more money in my pocket. Like that doesn't feel good. But a lot of people are approaching their promotions that way, like from this ego place. So if you actually think that I'm telling you that you have to go to your boss and ask for a promotion every 6 weeks, or every time you have an ally meeting conversation with a senior executive leader, you have to ask for a promotion, then of course you're not going to do it because most women are not driven solely by ego, right? Like you might be fed up, and I have a lot of women that are like fed up and they should be getting paid more and they want more influence and respect and they're over it and they're ready to speak up and all of those things. But for the most part, we don't care so much about the title. But what we want is the influence. We want to truly be able to impact our organization at the highest level, right? And so if that's something that you want, it feels contradictory to say, I want a promotion. It's much easier to instead say, hey, can I take on a bigger project? Right? And then in the back of your mind, the reason you're asking for that bigger project is not necessarily to deliver more value to your company, but because you kind of think it will lead to a promotion, right? Like, really ask yourself, why did you take on that bigger project? Because you thought you would get compensated for it eventually. And then when you don't, you feel frustrated and then you want to quit your job. And now you've let your company down in a different way, right? And so I want you to see that advocating for a promotion is not actually about you. It's about them and the impact that you can bring to your organization at a higher level. Goes back to the principles of sales. One of the number one principles of sales is that when you're building that connection, you can't make it about you closing the sale. It has to be about the customer and how whatever it is that we're selling is going to help the customer, right? So we have a product that we're selling and it's going to help the customer. So when you are advocating for a promotion, you're advocating the value that you bring to the organization. It's not about you. Recently, I had a client that was given feedback on her previous position, and she had a pretty high level position. And she was told that sometimes it seemed like she was a little um, self-conscious, that she felt like she was being left out, right? And so sometimes when she would say, "Hey guys, can I come to that meeting?" It would come off as like FOMO, essentially, that she was missing out on something. And she's like, "I'd never wanna do that again," right? That's a terrible feeling to think, "Oh, I'm in an executive level position and people are reading FOMO and lack of confidence?" Like, that doesn't feel good. So you don't want to do that again. And what I told her was, instead of, it's not that you were wrong by trying to join the meeting, right? Like, if you think you need to be at that board meeting or you think you need to be included in that conversation, it's not wrong of you to ask to be included in those meetings. But you have to remember that when you're asking, it's not because you need to be there. It's not because you want to be there. It's not because they left you out of that particular meeting. In fact, it's not personal at all. Really, 99% of the time, it's because they have other priorities, right? Something else that they're going to be talking about in the meeting, and it doesn't really affect you, right? But let's say you want to raise your hand and you want to be included in that conversation. It's really important to make it not about you, but to make it about them, right? And about the work that you're working on, right? So let's say you work in a marketing team. You want to be included in that in that meeting, that board meeting, that executive meeting, because marketing needs to be represented, right? Does this make sense? Versus, "Hey, I noticed that I didn't get a meeting invite. I'd like to come," right? It's like, "No, I noticed that marketing's not represented here. I would like to come," right? Or whatever it is that you bring to the conversation, but it has to do with the organization or how you can impact them, right? So when you know this principle of advocating for yourself is really about the value that you bring and what's in it for them, and it has nothing to do with you, maybe you'll be more likely to ask, right? You might be more likely to raise your hand. You might be more likely to say at some point throughout the year, that 1% of the time, "Hey, I would like to be promoted." But not because I wanna be promoted, but because I wanna make a bigger impact at this organization, right? I know that if I was operating at that vice president level, then I could have more influence, and here are the reasons why, right? I can help you better, I can make your job easier, whatever that might be for you, right? So once you know that a promotion is not necessarily advocating for your promotion anyway, is not necessarily about you, it's about them and what you can do at that next level of leadership, you can and hopefully would be empowered to raise your hand, empowered to do more.